Greetings, fellow creatures. I have returned. This is a video that I have been putting off making for like 2 weeks. Couldn't really collect my thoughts on it. Had some others I needed to make sure that I put out, like the Batman and Morbius. But it, like those films, is a result of the sponsorship of this channel's permanent channel patron, Mr. Tim Tolbert. Tim has become almost a collaborator of mine in the sense that we exchange ideas about these movies. He gives me ideas. He gives me ideas for ones I should go see that he would like to see me review. So, he's becoming more a part of the channel, and I really, really appreciate it. The only other channel patron I have is Miss Drew Dahmer, and she has been kind enough to gift me with some money that enabled me to purchase some items that I'm going to review. My last video, Black Test Car and Straight Time, that goes through that demonstrated my, my usual unboxing, unveiling, unwrapping situation, but I'm going to do proper reviews of them later, hopefully soon. This one has taken me a few weeks, so I'm going to be covering this 2022 film called Everything Everywhere All at Once by Daniels. Not the Daniels, just Daniels. So, and I'm going to be real honest, there's a few details about this I am going to cheat like I used to do, because I just have not committed all these names to memory. I should have taken notes. I have begun taking notes for my next few videos. Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. These are Daniels. This was made by A24. Our good friends at A24. So, I've talked about them before. They've been responsible for a lot of kind of art house, indie, alternative films. They've kind of become one of the most successful boutique labels. I would still call them, at this point, I'd call them a semi-indie, which is a term not we, like me, but cineasts or film critics coined in the 1990s, when you had a lot of films that were of indie origin, Indian style, in vibe and feel, began as indie movies, and they were picked up for wider distribution by big corporations and chains. And eventually that kind of started. There were films that were kind of mid-level budget, made by those bigger studios that tried to jump on the bandwagon and replicate the vibe of the very vibrant 1990s indie film scene. So to me, a semi-indie is either a real indie movie who's kind of made some compromise in order to get vast distribution on a wider scale, or is something that's created and crafted by the studios to kind of co-opt or capitalize on the success of independent film. So A24 is on the edge. They're still kind of independent. I don't know if they're owned by a mega corp yet. Maybe only be a matter of time. Who knows? They do get very nice distribution, but they really began as a distributor. Basically, they were kind of the way Lionsgate was. Lionsgate started as a distributor, and they first began specializing in very controversial films other people wouldn't handle, like Dogma and like Kids. And gradually they got to the point where they were distributing their own films. They became, a studio of themselves, unto themselves. They actually purchased a larger art house company, Artisan, through some keen financial maneuverings. And then they went on to kind of be mainly known for horror films and again, semi-indie films, mid-budget to low-budget films that they distributed or helped make or invested in. But A24 is kind of mainly began as a distributor along those same lines. I first saw their name. I would say the first movie I saw with A24 on it was Kevin Smith's Tusk, uh, which I personally really like. It's a very reviled film in some circles. I think it's one of his very best films. I think it's his best made film cinematically. And it is pretty disturbing. Um, A24. So I saw them, and then later on, I saw them. They distributed Ex Machina um, by Alex Garland, um, Under the Skin by what's his name, Brian Glazer. Brian, I think that's his name, and The Witch by Robert Eggers, which I saw in the theater also. Um, and so to me, they became kind of a symbol of quality. They seemed to have immaculate taste in what they were distributing. I know I'm forgetting a lot of key titles. So here's where they became kind of a semi-indie, as some of the movies they were distributing and investing in were becoming award winners, and were becoming just more mainstreamed just by the simple fact that the movies are nominated for and or win Academy Awards. More people are likely to go check them out. I think the best example of that was Moonlight, uh, which won a ton of Oscars. They've had several Oscar winners since then. I'd like to make a comprehensive list of films that A24 has had their hand in that I personally have either seen and or like. But that's for another day. So it didn't surprise me that this kind of film was on their slate. Um, First of all, just from the trailers, first of all, the star is Michelle Yeoh. I've talked about her on this channel before a bit in my reviews of Star Trek Discovery a while back. She has a key role in there. Actually, she's had two key roles playing alternate reality versions of the same character, which is ironic because this is what she's doing in Everything, Everywhere, all at once. And so, yes, she's been beloved by me for quite a long time, going back to Heroic Trio in Hong Kong, one of the first things I saw her in, and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon I saw in the theater when it premiered in America, and it was an unexpected hit here. And tons of other movies. Movies that are made in Hong Kong, like she's done other superhero movies like Heroic Trio, like Silverhawk, where she plays this superhero called Silverhawk. And it was a pretty clever film. She's been in a lot of stuff. And she's done in Hong Kong, she's done drama, action, a lot of martial arts. She was in it's a cool one in the late 80s called Magnificent Warriors, which was set in the 30s, in China as it's being conquered by Japan, I believe. And she was like a pilot and a explorer, adventurer. And she kind of an Indiana Jones vibe. She's like a female Asian Indiana Jones. That is a super fun movie. Love that one. I used to have that on DVD. I'm drawing a blank on her many accomplishments, but she first became mainstreamed in America with as one of the Bond girls, and in one of the Pierce Brosnan Bonds. I want to say it's Tomorrow Never Dies, but I could really be wrong there. And then Crouching Tiger came next, and of course that was like a crossover hit. So you got to see her kind of in her element, doing martial arts, doing a wuxia genre film in Mandarin, not even in Cantonese, but in Mandarin. Chow Yun-fat had to learn how to speak Mandarin. He said he spoke English better than he did Mandarin, and he didn't speak English that great then. Since then, yeah, she's never stopped working really. She's predominantly done her own stunts, a la Jackie Chan. She was formerly trained in martial arts. I believe she started as an actress in those kind of movies first and trained, and then mastered martial arts. I think she began as a model. She was born in Malaysia, but her career has been primarily in Hong Kong. but yeah, I mean, I think she began as a model in the very early '80s. A lot of the stars of the classic golden age of what I consider the golden age of modern Hong Kong cinema. You could go back to King Hu and the wuxia stuff that I talk about constantly on this channel, or the Shaw Brothers stuff, which I reviewed the Shaw Scope box set. I'm getting ready to review another Shaw Brothers film very soon. It'll be a very special episode. But to me, the modern stuff kind of began like Shaw Brothers and other studios were kind of veering into horror and supernatural and more fantasy and darker things, more special effects, more spectacle. Um, Gradually, there was a fade from the martial arts into what's called the heroic bloodshed subgenre. People like Ringo Lam and of course and Choi Hark, and of course John Wood, the master, arguably, of that subgenre. Starting with A Better Tomorrow in the mid '80s, which kind of made China Fat a superstar. Um, well, at least in Asia, which is a lot of people. Um, and these movies began being exported on videotape and bootlegged. Uh, and the other strain, also related to Choi Hark, was he produced A Better Tomorrow. Goes back to his own film, I think 1980, Zoo, Warriors of the Magic Mountain. Now, that was a very influential film. It brought the wuxia kind of thing to another level with a little more modern looking special effects. And, films following it really kind of took the wire work, they named it wire fu, to an insane degree. I mean, they weren't just a few people hopping on trees like in King Hu. They were just flying through the air in every direction. And these signature shots where they'd be like pointing like that and the background would be rushing by, kind of like it's a panel from a manga. And a lot of these films are very monochromatic, predominantly blue. They had a certain look to them that I really love. A lot of great movies came out of that era and a lot of great stars. And among the big stars of that era who kind of started in the early '80s, some of them started in the late '70s when they were really young, like in pop music or on soap operas. China Fat began on soap operas. I think Leslie Cheung began as a pop star, but yeah, Leslie Cheung and Maggie Cheung, of course. Anita Mui began as a pop star, and she's now deceased. Of course, Tony Leung. I've talked about him a lot on this channel. Reviewed In the Mood for Love, and that one he was in recently is Shang-Chi. Yeah, that one. And up at the top level, of course, Jackie Chan too. And up at the top level of these stars was Michelle Yeoh, who was known for a little while on export products as Michelle Kwan. That's where I first encountered her name. Now, her real name is Yeoh. That's her family name, so it comes first. So her actual forename Chinese is like two names, with a hyphen, and I forgot what they are. Anyway, she's always been a very beautiful, classy, elegant, very dynamic physical star, very distinctive voice. She really mastered English, really better than any of the stars I mentioned, with the exception of Maggie Cheung, perhaps. I think hers English is pretty flawless. And she has this weird kind of slight British accent. But Michelle Yeoh, she's right up there, man. And when she started doing Star Trek Discovery, that was her crossover into American television, a regular venue for her. She had a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and she played let's see, there was Stikar, Alita, I think is her name. There were a man and a woman in the comics who merged together. They were husband and wife. They merged together and became Starhawk, one of the Guardians. So in the films, they're not merged together; they're separate. They're husband and wife. Stikar is played by Sylvester Stallone. The wife's played by Michelle Yeoh. I don't know where James Gunn gets these ideas. They're kind of cool, but they're also kind of odd. I mean, sometimes good, odd, sometimes not as good. But they just were members of the Ravagers, which really the Ravagers was his way to show the original Guardians of the Galaxy characters from the many early days of the comic books, not the team that began in the 2000s, which is the one that adapted into the films that we popularly know. So at the end of that movie, he shows all of those characters, and they're in a group called the Ravagers. And Thor is going to have a crossover with Ravagers and Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor: Love and Thunder. So Michelle Yeoh is supposedly having her own Star Trek series called Section 31. It's been long delayed. I don't know if any of it's been filmed. Of course, COVID delayed a lot of things, but then Paramount's kind of been dragging their feet really on a lot of their stuff. So anyway, when I saw the trailer of this movie, I was like, Michelle Yeoh, and there's martial arts and drama and humor, and there's like incredibly crazy special effects and wild, quick editing, and it's about the multiverse. And this movie was produced by the Russo brothers, who, of course, wrote. Well, they didn't write. They directed Captain America: Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, Avengers: Infinity War, and everyone's favorite Avengers: Endgame. They have, in some interviews, been kind of criticizing some recent Marvel materials for not taking more chances. But they've got theirs, so they can criticize the other, But anyway, they just happen to have a little bit of money laying around from that Endgame film, and so they produced this film. Supposedly, the budget's $25 million. I would not be surprised if it was at least twice or three times that much, but it has some of the most impressive special effects of any recent film that I can think of. The costumes are amazing, special effects are amazing, the cinematography, the editing is just unbelievable. I mean, you could be here for years doing the frame by frame on this thing. Oliver Stone would be very, very much an appreciation of this. He might already be, because he was an early fan of Asian exported cinema too. He even wrote about it a little with Tom Weiser back in Asian Trash Cinema zines. But Oliver Stone's a really hip, cool guy. He still is. So I finally got to see the movie. Well, I didn't finally. It was in a limited release, and that's how I was going to play it first. And I thought that was all it was going to get. And I've been to a few of these limited releases, so it's kind of like you kind of jump on them if you live someplace like where I live. So there were two showings on a Thursday night, and that was it. There were none other planned in the Carolinas. They were just announced very late, though. What happened the following week is it got bumped up to a wide release, but there wasn't any advertisements for this around here that I could find, any evidence of that. So I rushed to the 7 p.m. showing on that Thursday night. I think the same day I watched the Batman. So I watched the Batman second, I guess. That's not right. I'm not sure. But I saw them both the same day. I think I saw the Batman second because I was in there till midnight. So everything all at once. It's not a very long movie. It's just somewhere between an hour and a half. Let me see. Hour and a half to 2 hours. 139 minutes. So 2 hours and 19 minutes. The same length as Dawn of the Dead, the extended cut. So here's what I thought about it. One of the reasons I've been delaying reviewing it is because it's become kind of trendy. It's become kind of a slight of a hipster movie. A lot of buzz around it. It's starting to make a good deal of money in America, but they're really not that much in the big scheme. But if you compare it to its budget and the critical praise it's getting, it and how low grossing a lot of films are in the theater these days, it's kind of inching its way up the charts, so to speak. It's made $22.5 million worldwide. Hasn't made much money overseas, oddly, but but it's almost broke even with its alleged production budget. That's not including like advertisement and some all this other stuff. So I think it's one of the more ambitious A24 movies I've seen. And when I say ambitious, I don't mean like, aspiring to art house brilliance or awards or experimentation on a real profound level. It's more visually conventional than that overall, but the genre elements, the science fiction and action elements are so well crafted that it's kind of to another level. Basically, it's about this woman, Evelyn Wang. She's kind of an average Chinese American. She owns a laundromat with her husband, Waymond. And I'm thinking his name was supposed to be Raymond, and they're making fun of people who make fun of Chinese pronunciations and calling him Waymond because it sounds really silly. But anyway, Waymond is kind of a geeky milquetoast guy. They co-own the laundromat. He's willing to divorce her. He doesn't feel like she's paying him enough attention. They have a daughter. I'm trying to remember what her daughter's name is real quick here. Joy. Joy is gay. She has a white girlfriend named Becky. Joy feels kind of underappreciated and overlooked and patronized by her mother. Completing this interesting family is this guy named. He goes kind of by his nickname, so he's like named Gong Gong, which means grandfather, I think. And he's played by the great James Hong, who's been in a zillion movies. And you remember when I mentioned Zoo Warriors of the Magic Mountain earlier? The earliest film made in America that was a homage to that was Big Trouble in Little China by John Carpenter. He was very inspired by Choi Hark's Wireworks and the jumping wizards and their special effects. And he, of course, had more money to use than the Hong Kong people. That's the movie really where James Hong is kind of immortalized as a cult film star. He played David Lopan, the villain. He's getting pretty up there in the years, but anyway, he's in a wheelchair. I don't know if he really is or just his character. But he's Evelyn's father, so small cast that's pretty strong. That's like the family grouping. And they're basically trying to keep their laundromat from going under, and they're going to see the IRS and the tax lady played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who's kind of almost unrecognizable in this, and extremely goofy, but they use her to good effect. So the movie the central kind of scene we keep coming back to is them at the IRS office. While they're there, not an alternate reality, but Waymond awakened. Inside him is awakened the mind of an alternate universe Waymond. I guess he's the Alpha Waymond because Alpha is the main other dimension they cross over with. I'm going to see if that's what they say. Yes, Alpha Waymond explains to Evelyn that many parallel universes exist since every choice made creates a new universe. The Alpha universe is led by the late Alpha Evelyn, who developed verse jumping technology. Allows people to access the skills, memories, and bodies of their parallel universe counterparts. So this is imparted onto Evelyn, and at first it's a bit overwhelming. She doesn't master it, but then so much of it becomes instinctive because she really is taking on that through the verse jumping process. That's her selves are merging really fast, and she comes away with like their abilities. Like in one reality, she's a movie star. In one reality, she's a master chef. In a few realities, she is a martial artist. She's like a superhero almost. And then a lot of other things from adventurous to mundane. She doesn't really know what to do with this. She doesn't have control over it, but it keeps happening to get them out of trouble because Alpha Waymond has made her aware that there's a character called I'll never pronounce it. Jobu Tupaki, which is like a, like an evil dimension spanning being, and that's who they have to fight. Now, Jobu has various realities too. The primary Jobu Tupaki, which I think is the alpha one, is actually played by the same character that plays Joy, her daughter, same actor, and it's essentially an alternate Joy. So in that reality, Waymond is like trying to save everybody. Evelyn is like awakened to be the big hero. Their daughter is like the big villain, and then Gong Gong, the grandfather, he's kind of also sinister. He's also trying to eliminate Evelyn. And after a while, it becomes really convoluted as to who's who and what in all these various dimensions. So, they have several battles and rematches between Evelyn and Jobu, and of course, a lot of back and forth and, subtext and text of Evelyn and her daughter. Every time you see Jobu, she has like a different costume, a different look. She's a very arrogant, powerful character. The costume designs in this are absolutely amazing. It's just like fantasy, just completely unfettered. It's just did whatever they wanted to do visually. But the basic story is just the Chinese American family and their laundromat. Here's where I was a little disappointed in the movie, me personally, is I felt like toward the very end they kind of, they kind of start wrapping up the multiverse plot line, and her mission or whatever, and getting more into the family, and you have this major conflict between her and her daughter, which of course mirrors their multiversal selves having this, superpower battle. And it kind of like tapers off and putters out. And of course, Waymond and her don't divorce. And I guess you say it has a happy ending. The family kind of accepts who they are and each other. The friction begins to ease up. Evelyn has kind of become a self-realized person as a result of all this stuff, because most of these universes were created by different choices she made. And one theme throughout the movie, a strand, is that she left China and Gong Gong to marry Waymond in America, and that was what led to their kind of lower middle class life with the laundromat and a family. And so it's almost like she's always wondered what if she hadn't done that and done something that was more self-serving, more self-fulfilling. And this is that to the nth power. It's her seeing all these other realities where she could have been all these other things, from ordinary mundane, just different careers, all the way up to like cosmic superheroes. So, so the end I thought was cool. It was a simple message. I know Michelle Yeoh herself really loved it and liked it because she knows a lot of women like Evelyn Wang in real life, or has known them, and she wanted to portray this character that wasn't glamorous and wasn't a superhero or supervillain, but who was a relatable woman of her ethnicity and social stratum that she's familiar with. Even though I don't think she, by the time she was that age as Michelle Yeoh, she was of course much better off and more glamorous than Evelyn Wang. But that's the idea, the jumping off point between one to the other. So to her, it was a really personal role, and I get that. And you can kind of tell even in the trailers that she's heavily invested in it. I think she does most of her own stunts. Some of the stunts are absolutely amazing. Some of the fighting scenes are definitely, I think, some of the best in a mainstream movie, at least in America, in a while. I might be exaggerating about all this stuff. I just want to stress that I think the technical aspects of this movie make it a must-see. If you're an Evelyn Wang fan, just kidding. If you're a Michelle Yeoh fan, it's a must-see. If you're just a fan of Asian cinema or Asian characters or James Hong, it's a must-see. it has a lot of in glimpses from all these other universes where Waymond also has different personalities, some of which he's very confident. There are little glimpses of those realities in those alternate selves that are cinematic pastiches to other filmmakers. There's a notable one that's an extended thing where they're kind of a romantic couple who happen upon each other, and he's kind of a jaded, dissolute, uh, guy in a suit, womanizer, and she's kind of like a glamorous star. And they meet outside in the rain, and she has these stylized dresses. Now that is a pastiche slash homage to Wong Kar-wai. I mean, I don't know if many people in the theater with me knew that or realized it. Now I have read since other people caught on to it. Um, it was good natured. It was kind of making fun of Wong Kar-wai, but not in a mean way. Just like taking some of his tropes. And there's a few scenes and shots that are definitely would not be out of place in a Takashi Miike film either. That are really outrageous. Not as violent and mean spirited as his stuff can be, but pretty, fucking bizarre and yeah, outrageous in their own way. And I'm sure there's lots of other stuff I missed. Those are two of the major ones I saw. To me, this movie is like the next step in bringing the kind of cinema I was talking about earlier that Michelle Yeoh is very much a product of and was a big part of, gradually into acceptance in the mainstream of American cinema. It started with Crouching Tiger, and that was 21 years ago. And so over the years, a lot of those elements and those techniques have been woven throughout American films, especially action and genre films, like Yuen Woo-ping, the great, master stuntman, martial artist. He did the choreography for The Matrix and also for the first X-Men and various others. And over, eventually, like Jackie Chan made the transition over here. Ringo Lam and John Woo began working in Hollywood, though their stuff in Hollywood to me was not nearly as good as their stuff in Hong Kong. The stars gradually started appearing in other movies and other TV shows. And of course, foremost among those was Chow Yun-fat, obviously, and Maggie Cheung, and Jackie Chan, obviously, and Michelle Yeoh. So Michelle Yeoh is pushing 60. She looks much younger, and she's in incredible shape. Like I said, she's been doing most of her own stunts for years, and if I'm correct, at one point she was sliding down a hill during a stunt and hit a rock and cracked her skull. She doesn't have any brain damage, so it's amazing. And she went back for more. So I think so I think this film is kind of the ne plus ultra. Is that the right word? It's a one climactic point, maybe even the terminal point of that seepage of the modern golden age of Hong Kong cinema that I'm referring to, like say the late 70s, Shaw Brothers phasing into like Golden Harvest Studios and John Woo and the Heroic Bloodshed and all the wuxias and the later kinds of wuxias that are more fancy, like the Troy Hart. And that stuff all bottomed out by like 97 because of the repatriation of China. Britain relinquished control over Hong Kong as a colony, and that was unfortunate for Hong Kong. A lot of Hong Kong citizens and artists were not happy because then they were controlled by mainland China, which of course exercises very extreme censorship and certain other draconian policies in their citizens' lives. And so some of them came over to Hollywood, like John Woo, like Chow Yun-fat, and that was a big reason. It was kind of like when the German artists fled, the Nazis and came over to Hollywood. I don't think this is an extreme example. I'm not saying the Chinese government is bad as the Nazis, but at their worst, they're pretty rough. Organ harvesting of dissidents is pretty rough stuff. They've been kind of rehabilitating their image of late, and they've improved their own country's economy enormously, putting America really to shame as to the life quality of life of the citizens. But they are still communists, and they aren't really the cool kind of communists either. That are really trying to, create a better life for a lot of people. Uh, doesn't always work. China kind of is the dark side of communism that, we're force fed. We were force fed growing up, and now we're being force fed again through Russia Gate and this current war, even though Russia is not communist anymore. That link is, inextricable. A lot of left-wing social activists who have identified as leftists, as socialists, now also identify as communists, and censoring of those kind of people is growing. It's getting scary, and it's where I know some of them, and it's in my backyard, kind of. So far be it for me to make any comments, about China, except that repatriation in 1997 pretty much killed the vibrant, like 30-year Hong Kong cinema run of just brilliance. So we've had scraps here and there, and you have guys like Zhang Yimou. Zhang Yimou worked in mainland China, and like every other movie he made, he like got arrested, and you said the movie got arrested. The movie got banned, and he'd be sentenced to a criminal sentence. You can't make a film for 2 years. You're prohibited from filmmaking for 2 years. So then he come back with another one, and all these movies were big hits over here in the art house, like Judo, and I think he did Chin Cage did some of these, but yeah, Zhang Yimou, like Raise the Red Lantern, and of course Farewell My Concubine, and To Live, and especially like To Live. I mean, all it did was show the conditions of this one family living in communist China from the 60s, like the late 50s, the revolution, up to, maybe the late 70s. And Gong Li co-starred in it. And it didn't emphasize in any overt, like, beating you over the head fashion that the communist government was just like, like Nazis, just like nasty, evil, vile, and, they were suffering constantly. But they were suffering. They were suffering socioeconomically. And there were it wasn't a matter of being controlled by the government and the communist, I guess, idealism of Mao Zedong or whatever being, kind of corrupted, and everybody was disappointed by how it came out. So when we saw this movie, To Live, over here, that's what we saw it as, a drama, as these people just really to live. It's just like their lives in China, and they're hard. But it didn't beat you over the head with an overt political message. Now in China, it's different because it was so accurate at depicting how run down their lives are. Not like totally wretched, but just it kind of showed really that this lifestyle and this mode of government really wasn't good for its people. And so To Live got banned, and Zhang Yimou got arrested. It's just like and it's like, but people in America didn't necessarily get that. I mean, not to the extent, but China's like, oh no, they're showing people how fucked up our government is. We can't have this, even though the plot is not super over the top dramatic. But anyway, Zhang Yimou ended up salvaging his career in mainland China by going into wuxia pictures, like in the wake of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. He did Hero, which with Jet Li and Maggie Cheung, Tony Leung, which I think is just an amazing accomplishment. Donnie Yen's in it also. And he made it like a trilogy, and unfortunately they suffered in quality with each chapter. I mean, they're not related story-wise, but the second one, House of Flying Daggers, is quite good with Zhang Ziyi and Andy Lau, Takashi Kaneshiro, and the third one was Shining and Fat and Gong Li, Curse of the Golden Flowers. It's beautiful to look at, but it's really kind of empty to me. There might be some subversive anti-China message in there I'm not seeing. And actually, a lot of people have commented that the ending of Hero is arguably an anti-communist, anti-Chinese government statement. The guy goes against the emperor. He goes through these tests and trials up these stairs because he's accomplished all these tasks, like defeating these swordsmen and stuff. to where he can be in the company of the emperor, and he's done it so he can assassinate the emperor. And the emperor turns out not to be like evil incarnate, but they do fight, and the emperor himself actually kind of wants to spare our main guy who has no name. His name's nameless. And he's just determined he's just going to walk on through, man. And so all these archers, this wasn't CGI. Some of it was CGI, but most of it was not. It was just an amazing tableau that Zhang Yimou staged for this film. Hundreds of archers, and they're all firing at him. And so you have the film is closing with this outline of a human figure. And there's no arrows there because he's fallen over, and there's arrows all around it. And they make some kind of statement. I forgot what it was, like an aphorism. But basically, he symbolized individuality against the collective. Great movie. He got away with it because he coded it in fantasy and historical action. So what the hell does this have to do with Everything Everywhere All at Once? Well, I think that's, like I said, I think it is a climax, might not be the climax, of bringing this kind of filmmaking and this kind of, the kineticism, the inventiveness, the martial arts skill, and also the acting modes and the drama and the concerns of Chinese and Chinese Americans. And so it's really a movie that encompasses a lot of things. To me, it's probably going to be the most Asian film you're going to see made in America for quite some time, and the most maybe in quite some time, maybe ever. I don't know, but yeah, I was a little disappointed with it. Like I said, it kind of tapers off into the mundane family drama, but not that mundane. I mean, upon reflection and telling you guys about it, I do kind of want to see it again, and I actually think my opinion of it will improve. It's easy to get sucked in with it because the pace is so quick sometimes, and the ideas are kind of big and cosmic, and it's very kind of melodramatic. And like I said, it's just, it's amazingly kinetic, and the editing is just out of control. The way it shows her experiencing all these different multiverses and selves of herself at one time, with all the different costumes and everything. And there's a visual splendor to this that's really, really quite amazing. So that's my long awaited for review. I know like 3 or 4 of you have been eagerly waiting for this review. Maybe that's probably it. Please like this video. Please, I'm still having problems with the like. It's getting slightly better, but my videos are starting to increase in views a lot again, which helps out a lot. But without the likes, it's still combating the sea of algorithms. So please help me out. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. My subscribers are gradually growing. I'm happy with that. Share with your friends. Share on Twitter, Facebook. Share to your film groups or whatever is appropriate to the particular video of mine. Like you can share this one to the A24 group. I definitely will be. I don't even remember if I'm still in it. Like I left it and then somehow I was back in it. And they're funny people. And this is one of those movies that's going to like short circuit them, kind of the way their beloved Florence Pugh. I mean, I love her too, but she was like an indie A24, darling icon with Midsummer. And then she's playing the Black Widow in a Marvel movie. So it's like, should we like Black Widow? Should we not? Cognitive dissonance. This is going to be like that too. It's like, oh, Michelle Yeoh and oh wow, and Daniel and the Daniels and A24. Well, wait a minute, all these special effects and the Russo brothers and kind of a more mainstream plot. And wait, hold on, are we supposed to like this or not? It's hard being a fan bro or a fan sis, I guess, because I think a lot of not more women like the kind of movies I'm talking about. The fan bros, they just like to smash on all the genre and superhero films, and you know, they watch them loyally, but they hate them. It's this sick, toxic relationship they have. So before I get silly, I'm gonna go. That's it. So I'm gonna do a special episode soon of Blue Review. I'm gonna review the incoming Blu-rays, but I'm also gonna keep working on trying to relaunch this music show, The Bottomless Well. I'm so close to getting it all structured, but you know, I want you to be able to hear music properly on my low rent rig here. And I have begun working again on my socio-political show. I have shot a few test episodes, and I also have a comic book related project that's going to be a long-term thing. It'll probably many chapters, and I've shot the first 5 episodes of it in the can already. And but I want to get more in there before I debut it, so I can stagger it. I probably said this in one of recent videos, but the point is, it's coming along nicely, and it's going to basically a dissection of the entirety of one of my favorite all-time Marvel comic book series. So anyway, thanks guys. Take care. Rock on.